I don't have any lecture prepared, so now the floor is open to questions.
谢谢发言人。每日经济新闻记者提问：近日，商务
Thank
部
you.
等6部门印
From
发了
Daily
关于进一
News,
步扩大跨境电商零售进口试点
six
的通知，
ministries
试点
have
范围扩大
published
至所有的
about
自
the
贸试验
pilot
区、跨境电
project
商
of the
综市区、
e-commerce,
综合保税
covering
区、
all free
进
trade
口贸易促进
zones,
创新
the
示范区、
comprehensive
保税物
bonded
流中心
zones,
所在城市。
and
请问扩大
the
试点范
trade
围基于怎样的
demonstration
考虑？
parks,
对构建双
and
循
so
环新
on.
发展格
So
局
what
将
is
起到怎
the
样的作用？
logic
谢谢。
behind scaling up those pilot scope? Thank you for your question. The CPC Central Committee and the State Council put high premium on the development of new forms of e-commerce. Since November 2018, we kicked off the project of e-commerce development, and different localities have been exploring. They're standardizing the efforts while they're developing the effort. And in 2018, the total import volume on e-commerce exceeded 100 billion RMB yuan, and at the same time, risk prevention and regulatory system are being improved. We have seen effective outcomes of regulation. Now we have the preconditions of scaling up such examples. For this moment, China's consumption need, particularly in central and western China and in Tier 3, Tier 4 cities, the consumption capabilities have been elevated. They have higher need for high-quality products. A larger group of consumers are willing to buy products from around the globe without stepping outside the borders. So this time, by scaling up the pilot project, we aim to meet people's aspiration for a better life. We encourage the development of imported goods through e-commerce platforms. For example, in cities and regions, as long as they conform to the customs office's requirements, they can conduct this effort. We also encourage enterprises to readjust their business landscape based on their own needs. We also aim to offer convenience to consumers to buy across the borders. And that is going to give play to the market as a decisive role of resource distribution. Meanwhile, we reinforce regulation so as to also allow the government to play a role. In the next step, MOFCOM will work with the other ministries to urge certain cities to implement the policies of this pilot project stringently so that the import through e-commerce could be standardized and sustained. We also hope to encourage more high-quality products to be imported and avert the import risk. We hope to promote the establishment of a supply-demand balance so that demand could trigger supply. We also hope to formulate the double circulation with the domestic circulation as the core. Thank you. Next question. Thank you. From the Phoenix TV. The Biden government has informed the Chinese government that there will be sanctions against Iran oil, just as the Trump administration did. So in January, China's temporary method on this regard, will it be influenced? We've paid attention to the media's report about informing the Chinese government of such a sanction. I haven't received such an information yet. I have to say that the State Council has approved a multilateral agreement, and such multilateral agreement shall be executed to the full and in an effective fashion. The Chinese government has always observed the principle of independence and peace. We don't want to interfere with the internal affairs of other countries, and we also adhere to the principle of reciprocity, mutual benefits, and equality. We don't approve of the long-arm jurisdiction policy, and the Chinese government will continue to uphold fairness, equity, and responsibility. We will try to make effort to uphold the State Council, the Security Council's decision in order to facilitate regular economic and trade cooperation and our own legitimate rights. If certain foreign laws and regulations are opposing international laws or the basic rules of international relationships and also work against the interests of the legal persons or organizations in China, China will continue certain countermeasures based on the Chinese laws and regulations. We will unswervingly safeguard our own sovereignty and national security and our national interests. Next question. Thank you. From CMG. According to the prediction, China will be leading the world GDP growth in 2021. So in terms of foreign trade, what are the challenges and what measures will MOFCOM take? Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Now, the COVID-19 virus is the biggest uncertainty for our foreign trade. The world economy has a long-term structural conflict, and the fundamentals for recovery are shattering. So, based on our recent surveys, we could find that foreign trade companies are still facing some challenges. For example, the rising price of raw materials, fluctuation of forex, and the difficulty of getting cost-effective labor force in certain regions. MOFCOM will coordinate with localities and certain departments to implement the already unveiled policies to guarantee the stability and consistency of policies. As to the common problems confronted by those foreign trade companies, we will reinforce our support to those enterprises so as to improve our foreign trade policy toolkits. We will try to facilitate international logistics and enhance the capability of the companies to rise up to the fluctuation of forex in order to meet the expectation of those entities and stabilize the size of foreign trade in 2021. Thank you. From CGTN, as you know, by the end of last year, China and EU completed the negotiation about the China-EU Comprehensive Investment Treaty, and I heard that the translation will be pushed forward. So what is the progress made as to that matter? And recently, since China has a sanction against some EU employees and entities, so what will be the measures taken by the Chinese party? And will this undermine the assignment of the treaty between China and EU? Thank you for your question. The representatives from our negotiating team and the EU team are continuing the talks. So such a treaty is conducive to China, EU, and the world at large. Thank you. Next question. From CNBC, the question is, last week, during the meeting between Chinese and the U.S. top-level leaders, are there any favorable or unfavorable opportunities for foreign trade between the two countries? Thank you for your question. No matter how is the external environment evolving, our openness policy will remain unchanged. We will only open wider to the outside world, and we will continue to welcome foreign investors to settle in China for businesses, and we are still committed to establish a law-based and market-oriented international business environment so as to pave the way for foreign investors to develop in China with more convenience. Next question. Thank you. From 21st Century Economics. During the 21st century China-US high-level dialogue, what are the key topics and what are the outcomes? As to last week's China-US high-level strategic dialogue, Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs have released certain information. I haven't received more to reveal to you today. Thank you. Next question.
My question today is that the reports that H&M and other foreign clothing brands like Nike are no longer available on Taobao and other online platforms due to the issue of Xinjiang cotton. Has the ministry issued a request to online platforms such as Taobao, Pinduoduo, or other places to stop selling H&M and other brands? And are you aware of these reports? And do you have any other comment on this issue? Thank you.
您好，彭博新闻社提问。近期一些商家，包括 H&M 和耐克的淘宝店都被关停了，由于新疆棉花的问题。请问商务部有没有对相关企业发布通知？您是否知道这件事情？您对此有何评论？谢谢。
谢谢你的提问。所谓中国
Thank you for
新
your
疆地
question.
区存在强迫劳动。
The so-called forced labor in Xinjiang is nowhere to be found and is total falsehood. The cotton planted in Xinjiang shouldn't be influenced by such external rhetoric. We are against any such interference in China's internal political affairs. We are also opposing such false information and rumors. By taking advantage of the so-called the human rights issue in Xinjiang, that is actually an effort to sanction against us. As to the transnational company's operation in China, as long as it's carried out based on law and it's supporting our industrial chain, the Chinese government is always supportive. As to those companies reacting based on such false information and rumors and make certain operational decisions, the Chinese government also has taken some countermeasures as a response. We do call upon all enterprises to correct wrong behaviors and respect the market rules to avoid politicizing such commercial issues. And in the meantime, we welcome transnational companies to investigate by paying field visit to Xinjiang, and we stand ready to help such foreign companies to invest in Xinjiang. Next question.
谢谢，是香港南华早报记者。那请问，中美高层战略对话之后，
My question is, after the China-US high-level strategic dialogue, the Ministry of Agriculture on both parties have communicated this week. So does MOFCOM have such plan of meeting with the U.S. counterpart? Thank you for your question. I don't have a confirmative answer to this question. If we receive such news, we will certainly offer you the update. Next question.
谢谢主持人，总台国广记者提问。我们注意到美国商务部呢近来向中国多家通讯。
We've noticed that the U.S. Ministry of Commerce asked for such a security-related investigation of some Chinese telecommunication companies. So will China take some measures to protect the Chinese telecommunication companies? And what can we do as a countermeasure against such U.S. sanction against the Chinese telecommunication companies? Thank you. China has always upheld the policy that the international world prosperity rely on the safe, efficient, and open telecommunication industry. We are against such a sanction. We are also against such interference in China's telecommunication industry development. The U.S. is taking a blind eye of the international trade rules, and that is an interruption of the market order. That is a pure threat of the supply chain's safety. We've noticed that the semiconductor industry in the U.S. has shared their concerns to China's government. They are worried, and that has led to severe interference in China's telecommunication industry. We hope the U.S. can respect the market rule and take a reasonable attitude towards the Chinese companies to avoid politicizing the safety issue of the supply chain. And the Chinese government has the capability and the confidence to safeguard the legitimate rights of the Chinese companies. Thank you. Next question. Recently, the food price has rocketed up. So, will MOFCOM take some measures to avoid such rocketing price of food in the Chinese market, as opposed to the international trend? Thank you for your question. I can answer this question from two ways. Firstly, about grain price. Since 2020, the grain price rocketed up because of several factors. If we look at the international market, ever since the COVID-19 was spreading across the world, added by the Southeast Asian's drought and other natural disasters, for example, the locust in the desert, the grain prices fluctuated. Since June, we have also seen 9 months increase of food consecutively. And with the pig production picking up, corn and bean demand is rising, leading to higher price. And that also triggered the rising up of the other grain prices. So we have high expectation of grain price rise. Such producers also have a speculative mindset, and the consumers want to stock more grains in case of future price up. So those will incur the increase of price. But in general, China's grain output has maintained 1.3 trillion jin for 6 years in a row. As to the amount per capita, it's around 470 jin. That's above the international safety line of 400 jin per capita. As to the warehousing and stock of grains, is also at a high level. For wheat and the others, the stock can meet the demand for 1 whole year. So in general, to maintain the steady price of grains, we have the conditions and fundamentals. We don't have such reasons to believe that there will be rocketing price of grains. Since the Spring Festival this year, we've observed that last week, from March the 15th on, the edible agricultural products price has decreased, and for 5 weeks, there is a cumulative decrease of 9.6%. That's a 5.6% down from early this year and 2.7% down year on year, including a steady decrease of rice and flour. And as to pork and vegetable, the wholesale prices went down by 2.3% and 1.5%. And that's a 19.3% and 9.2% decrease compared to early this year. The pork production is resumed. As to the poultry, eggs, and vegetables, with the temperature going up and rising supply, in general, we believe that the edible agricultural products cannot have a big rise in price. So MOFCOM will continue such observation of market prices, particularly paying attention to rice, wheat, oil, eggs, vegetables, and meat, to stabilize the prices. And in line with the market trend, we will meet with certain organizations and departments to have enough stock at the central level. We will offer timely support of supply to the market, and also we will offer guidance to guarantee the prices and supply of agricultural products. We will try to ensure a steady growth of China's agricultural product supply.
Hi. Do you have anything to announce about the your tariffs on Australian wine, and when do you expect to make a final decision on that? Thank you.
请问商务部什么时候会对澳大利亚红酒的关税做出一个最后的决定？谢谢。
谢谢你的问题。关于这个问题，我们已经
Thank you for your question.
以往的发布会上表达过中方的立场。
In the previous press conferences, we have already stated our position. Thank you.
如果没有问题，今天的发布会
Any more
到此结束
questions? If
谢谢大
no,
家。
then this is the end of today's presser. Thank you for your time.